The director of tonight's picture, Pavel Lungin, comes from the family of a scriptwriter, his father, and a linguist, his mother. He himself became a linguist by education, graduating from Moscow University, but never worked as a linguist. Instead, he continued his studies in the higher courses for scriptwriters and directors in Moscow, becoming a professional scriptwriter in the 1975. In the late 70s and throughout 80s, his scripts were very popular, but he himself, after 15 years of doing script writing, he was very unhappy. He felt he was in the middle of nowhere. He felt he failed as a script writer, and he was in a sort of crisis. So he decided to come out of it by directing his own film, which he did in 1990. We'll come to it shortly. In the 1990, he had a breakthrough in cooperation with the actor Pyotr Mamonov, whom we are going to see in tonight's picture. That actually changed the direction of his life. He started directing. He continued to write scripts for his own films. And as his name became more and more popular, he was able to attract more and more funds. So he started producing his own films. So in his later works, he was scriptwriter, director, as well as producer. The kind of screen works that he made were very, very diverse. Screen versions of the Russian classics. Incidentally, he happens to be a big fan of Nikolai Gogol, the classical Russian writer. A war film on Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. A story of a Soviet skinhead, white supremacist who suddenly discovers that his father is a Jew. So absolutely diverse films, but no films of his are as popular as three works that he made in cooperation starring Pyotr Mamonov. So here we see both of them, the director on the right and the actor on the left. Their cooperation was extremely synergistic. It stretched for almost 2 decades. Possibly they could have made even more films, but somehow it were only 3 pictures in total. And their cooperation reminds us of similar stories between very important directors and very successful actors, for instance, Kurosawa and Mifune, or Tarkovsky and Anatoly Solonitsyn. It is Pavel Lungin who was able to bring out the best in this actor, and also the actor that, in a way, immortalized the director. Pavel Lungin's first picture, incidentally, the ones in which Pyotr Mamonov starred, was a grotesque comedy titled Taxi Blues. It came out in 1990 and received the Best Directors Award at the Cannes Festival the next year. Their next cooperation was The Island in 2006, which brought enormous popularity to both of them, the director as well as the actor. We are going to see it tonight. Hopefully we'll see why it was popular. And it was highly acclaimed by film critics, and even since it has a very strong moral Christian underpinning, even the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, Alexis II, weighed in and expressed his appreciation for this picture. And their last project was titled Tsar in 2009. It was both their last picture together and the pinnacle of their cooperation. It's a historical drama exploring the dark heart and mind of the absolute monarch, Ivan the Terrible, with its heady combination of faith and cruelty. So today's presentation will be a bit unusual in the sense that I'll be talking both about the director and the actor. So now about the actor. So Pyotr Mamonov, whom we are going to see tonight, son of an engineer and a translator from Scandinavian languages, was a truly remarkable character, and character he was, pun intended. Already in childhood he was a bad boy, got expelled from 2 schools, and we are talking about Soviet childhood where you really had to be nasty to get expelled from schools because, well, you could not study. You were forced to. So, and even though he indulged in all sorts of antiques and scandals, he also was a talented musician and a dancer in his school years. Later on, he was very much into the parallel culture or counterculture. He was very much into beatnik and hipster circles in Soviet Union. If anyone were to write his biography, it would really read like a freaky show. He got trained as a typesetter, hardly worked as a typesetter, remained unemployed, kept changing jobs, even went hungry for some time, ended up doing various jobs that did no justice to his talents as a musician. For instance, he worked as a masseur, he worked as a boiler room operator. He never trained in Scandinavian languages. He just learned Scandinavian languages from his mother, who was a professional Scandinavian scholar. So he started translating poetry from Scandinavian languages. He wrote his own poetry and authored several anthologies. As if that were not enough, he created his own rock band, Sounds of Mu. During the time of Gorbachev's opening up, his rock band was allowed to tour abroad. So around the same time, he ventured into cinema. He started doing theater as well, by directing and producing his own plays, and very often giving solo performances. But at the age of 45, all of it caught up with him. He was a train wreck. He even did some time in mental hospitals. He abused alcohol. He was extremely unhappy in life. And he rediscovered Orthodox Christianity, or discovered Orthodox Christianity, depending on your perspective. And that was the turning point of his life. In the 90s, he was doing theater and cinema together, and somehow a lot of his characters were weird and wacky as himself. And as can be seen here in this image from his first picture and Pavel Lungin's first picture, Taxi Blues, where he plays a talented saxophonist who is also an alcoholic. It is easy to see that he was basically playing himself in this film, but although in the form of a absolutely crazy and absurd comedy. So most of his roles were like that, and to the extent that one can even say that not he got into his roles, but rather the roles were adjusted to him. And all of it changed again in 2006 when he was invited by the director Pavel Lungin to do the lead role in the film we are going to see tonight, The Island. I'll give a bit of historical background at the risk of boring you. You see these colored spots, all of them together, stretching from the Baltic Sea, from the White Sea, all the way to the Black Sea. It's a map of a considerable part of East Europe 1,000 years ago. It's the first state of Eastern Slavs called Kievan Rus that covered a considerable part of European part of Russia, much of today's Ukraine, and the whole of today's Belarus. And you see that it extends all the way to the Arctic coast. You see that green part in the extreme north. So that part, so-called Russia's high north or Russian north, an inhospitable terrain full of lakes, rivers, washed by the White Sea, with very few Arctic Mongoloid people, local people. That became the place of Slavic migration, very gradual Slavic migration already 1,000 years ago, which picked up around 500 years ago. Russia's high north is a place of stark beauty, and it is no wonder that in the Middle Ages this region attracted religious seekers, monks and recluses who wished to spend their life in hard labor and religious contemplation. If early Christians, if they were in Egypt, they would go to the Sinai Desert or to Cappadocia in modern Turkey. Russian monks would go to the north, where they would not be disturbed. And as you can see from this classical Russian painting, this landscape, this place, very much suited their purposes. It offered enough challenge for those who sought challenge. It offered enough solitude and peace of mind for those who sought that. These monks and recluses ended up founding several monasteries wherever they went. By far the most important of these monasteries is actually the Solovetsky monastery in the center of the White Sea. There's a handful of islands there, so on one of those islands there is this monastery. We can see it in the present photograph. As you can see, these places, these monasteries dating back to 16th century, sometimes 15th century, they have their own aesthetics, which is enhanced by the long days in summer, because we are talking about the region which is very close to the Arctic Circle, where summer days are very long, and winter nights are also very long. So in summer you get this fairy tale, sometimes you get those fairy tale views, but on the whole it's gloomy, dark and cold, as we are going to see shortly in our film tonight. The background of the main character, there are several types. In Orthodox Christianity in East Europe, in Russia, there are several types of radical or extreme religious practitioners. So one type is the so-called elders. You can see the photograph. So it's the most advanced level of monastic ordination. It presupposes the complete retreat from all worldly affairs, complete renunciation of ties with the world, and spending the whole time in prayer, not even in physical labor, but in prayer and contemplation. So in fact, the hero of tonight's movie will be offered to take this step by his father superior. In popular perception, these people, these elders, these highly advanced monks, were capable of working miracles. They were able to predict the future, and most importantly, to give spiritual guidance to the laity. Much of it we are going to see tonight. Their instructions, their instruction method was very often rough and even violent. And in that sense, it was very similar to, it was and still is very similar to Zen. I would like to share with you one story. I happen to know one young man in the monastic circles who was quite handsome, with very good physique, anything but fool. He had a lot of things going for him, but he had no direction in life, so he was wasting his life and his health and abusing his body with various substances. But he had, partly he had some faith, so he decided to go and visit an elder, one of the important elders in that tradition, and he told me the story himself. So he comes to this elder for spiritual instruction because he's lost. He wants direction in life. The moment he enters into his cell, so the elder smacks him on the face and says, "What are you doing to your life? God gave you this body and you're abusing it and whatnot. What are you doing with yourself?" "Sorry, Father." He smacks him on the other side of his lovely face. So not only he immediately recognized what was going on with this man without knowing him at all, but he also, this elder also employed these rough methods of instruction, if you can call it this way, but you understand what is meant. And another type of extreme radical practitioners in the Orthodox Christianity is God's fools, or fools for Christ. It's the people who renounce not only their possessions, not only their family, they even renounced reason, because reason is something that it's a characteristic feature of us as human beings. So renunciation of reason for the sake of God is the highest sacrifice in the way that we can make. Renouncing body is a sacrifice. Renouncing your mind, your intellect, is in some way is a step further. So, and besides, of course, mind is viewed as the workshop of the devil. It's the trickster. It is something that constantly cheats you and takes you away from contemplating the divine. So you surrender this mind, you renounce it, and this becomes your practice. They were not monks. They were laymen, although they lived extremely hard life. Very often they had hardly any dress. So you can see here a man like that in winter, in Russian winter, minus temperatures, and he is hardly wearing anything. In popular perception, They were fools outside, but actually saints inside. Again, all their practices were self-imposed. They were not part of the monastic establishment. They were credited with the ability to heal people by laying hands on them, as we can see in this picture. Gave blessings, obviously. They were believed to be able to conduct exorcism, and we are going to see the scene of exorcism in tonight's movie. Spoiler alert, there will be no special effects. People of extreme renunciation who have very special abilities. And also, these people were completely unafraid of those in power, including the monarchs, the tsars. They acted very often as the moral compass in their society, offering moral direction of what is right to do in the Christian sense of this word. And they confronted and castigated even tsars when they felt it was necessary. So here we see the picture by a popular contemporary Russian artist with the tsar in the forefront, and this Christ's fool in the background, reminding him of the higher values than will to power that he represents. That reminds me of this Sufi idea that the highest courage of a Sufi practitioner is to tell the truth into the face of an unjust ruler. An interesting thing in itself. Our hero tonight is somewhere between these two types. We don't need to pigeonhole him anywhere. And we will see that he does certain things that the elders usually do, or the Christ's fools sometimes do. He is also similar in his behavior to the heroes of famous Russian writer Dostoevsky, in the sense that he goes through extreme emotional suffering in order to redeem himself. The idea that, redemption cannot be easy and beautiful, but it has to involve suffering. You have to pay for what you have done. There's a very strong theme of betrayal and redemption. So in one of our previous master classes, we saw a film focusing on betrayal and exploration, why people betray their own people, their own country. So here there will be also this theme of betrayal. And another remark, the main character very often speaks in a way which may appear to be out of tune, in the sense that he twists everything. He twists every sentence or every question that is put to him, but he does it deliberately, because that way he instructs, he tries to convey a certain message. Very often he quotes from the scriptures. Unfortunately, his quotes are not put in italics, but those of us who are familiar to some extent with Christianity will be able to recognize that it's basically quotes. So, and these quotes are again very much relevant to the moment. They're not out of place. And he instructs people not because he wants to promote himself or massage his ego. He does it because he believes that it's the mission that is given to him from above. And he does it in a Zen-like, very unexpected ways through very strange kinds of behavior and very strange dialogues. So let us see the film, and if you wish, later on we can have a discussion about it.